And a good Tuesday morning to you. Welcome into the Nick Craig Show, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, and X. Don't forget that you can take the show with you 24/7 on demand by checking out the Nick Craig Show in your favorite podcast app. You can also listen online by visiting the website nickcraig.com. Our show this morning is brought to you by the Law Group. Visit them online at lawgroupnc.com or give them a call at 910-251-6088. We'll have more from them coming up a little bit later on in the program this morning. Well, there's a lot of local issues that are consistently talked about, and one of them is so-called affordable and workforce housing. And so there's a big discussion about this at the New Hanover County Board of Commissioners meeting yesterday afternoon. We'll get into the meeting and some of the changes coming to that, but I think we need to start off with the discussion of what is affordable or workforce housing. Because this term, I think, is too broad. It is used in a variety of different settings, in a variety of different ways to describe a variety of different situations. And a part of the problem with terms like affordable or workforce housing is they're incredibly ambiguous. It's hard to really nail down and pin down what does a phrase like that mean. Now, there's no question about it. Property values in and around New Hanover County, and I might argue southeastern North Carolina as a whole, have been ballooning over the last couple of years. We'll get into some of those figures coming up here a little bit later on. Is there an issue with affordable housing in southeastern North Carolina, specifically in New Hanover County? I think if you look at the data, you would say, yes, housing has definitely become more expensive, therefore less affordable. Sure. But when we describe and when we talk about what is affordable housing, what is workforce housing, it's really hard to nail down exactly what that means. Now, there's a phrase that you'll hear sometimes, AMI, and you'll say, oh, well, this unit is 80% AMI. That's average median income. And so there's some calculations that can be used to price a property, price an apartment, price a condo in some 60 or 80% of the average median income. You assume, the average median income is $50,000. You would have a quote unquote affordable housing unit that is either 60 or 80% of that figure. So that's one of the things and one of the calculations that is used to describe and to actually lay out what affordable housing is. That's the actual metric that's used. But when you go into political discussions and political conversations over affordable housing, I don't think we're necessarily always talking about a 60 or 80% AMI. I think it's this, as I was just mentioning, this more broad, ambiguous term. And what exactly does affordable housing mean? And I don't know that there's an actual nailed down definition when it's being discussed publicly. We know this has been a big issue. It was a major discussion in the city council elections last year, or 2 years ago. It was a major discussion in the New Hanover County Commission elections. And as we head into elections later on this year in the city of Wilmington, it's going to be a big discussion, and same situation in the midterms. It's going to be a big discussion in New Hanover County with a couple of the commissioners being on the ballot as well. So it is a term and it is a phrase that is not going anywhere. And, I think it's important to set up this before we get into some of the discussion about affordable housing. We are living in an area of the country right now that is incredibly sought after. North Carolina, over the last 15 years, fortunately, thanks to good Republican and good conservative majorities in the North Carolina General Assembly, have really reshaped North Carolina. You go back to prior to 2010, and you had a state that had an incredibly high personal income tax, the highest in the southeastern half of the United States. You had a state that was buried in debt to both the federal government and other stakeholders. You had a state that for the better part of 100 years was spending more than they were taking in, more than they were collecting via taxes and other ways that government is able to generate, throw that in air quotes, money or income through vast majority of that coming through taxes. And so when you had Republicans like Tom Tillis and Phil Berger surge into power back in 2010, 2012 timeframe, they started course correcting the state of North Carolina. They cut things like the personal income tax rate, which is soon to be down to 2.5%. That's slated to happen here over the next couple of years. The business tax rate is on a projected path to go to 0 in the next couple of years. So you'd have no corporate income tax in the state. And so with these very strategic changes and these very strategic outlays by the North Carolina General Assembly, you had a state that was at one point in time not a very precarious place to live. Yes, the environment was good, right? You've got the mountains out the west. You've got the beaches here in the eastern half of the state. There is a geographical friendliness to the state of North Carolina. But from a business standpoint, from a consumer standpoint, it was not the friendliest place in the nation to be. Now, since 2010, 2012, those changes were made. Republicans in the General Assembly cut taxes, have continued to increase spending, and have managed a state budget. And the fruits of that labor are very clear. We talked about it last week. CNBC ranking the state of North Carolina the #1 state for business once again, getting that title for the third time in the matter of 4 years. And when you've got a place that is very sought after, you are going to have people moving there. And I'll use this as an example. And I don't try to demean, I'm not trying to demean any part of this conversation, but it's important to understand that when you are in a place that people want to be, prices are going to go up. When you are in a place that other people want to live, where businesses want to move, where people want to raise their families, then prices are going to go up. You know where prices are not going up? New York and California. Why? Because people don't want to live there. What are you seeing in those two states? You are seeing a mass exodus of the population. Individuals are not packing up their U-Hauls and driving in droves to New York and California. They are leaving those places. Why? Because it's not a friendly place to live. And you look at places like the Northeast, the weather tends to suck. As somebody that spent the vast majority of my life there, I get that. It's incredibly unfriendly for businesses. The tax climate is abysmal. It strangles the middle class. And so you've got people leaving. And states like New York and California are currently on the side of decline. They are losing population, right? They're losing congressional districts. With the 2020 census, both New York and California lost a congressional district. North Carolina gained, and now we have 14. Went from 13 to 14 members in Congress. That's the difference between a state that is on the side of growth and on the side of decline. And this was said to me years ago, and I don't know exactly who to attribute it to, but it was said to me, and it's really stuck with me ever since. You always want to be on the side of growth versus the side of decline. And you can see examples of that here in North Carolina. We love our friends in rural North Carolina, right? You get some beautiful areas throughout the state. But if you take off from Wilmington and start heading west on 74, 76, you'll drive through some areas of the state that are in decline. Areas of the state where you drive through the town or the little municipality, and it's a ghost town. And you've got like a Hardee's, a Bojangles, and a Chick-fil-A and a McDonald's, and then it's just a bunch of boarded up buildings. There's no growth going on in that area. The population is declining. Now, that doesn't mean that when you're on the side of growth, that everything is just hunky-dory, right? There are challenges being on the side of growth. We're seeing many of those challenges play out in our community. But it was said to me, and I believe it's true, it is always better to be on the side of growth than on the side of decline. And there is no question about it in our community right now, specifically focusing in on New Hanover County, we are on the side of growth. People want to live here. We have access to an incredible amount of natural resources here in southeastern North Carolina. We've got our beautiful beaches, our parks, our rivers, and as you start heading out west, not too far out west, you've got lakes and various areas that people want to be. And so when you're on the side of growth, that comes with challenges. That comes with growing pains. And that's something that New Hanover County is dealing with right now, and to no fault of their own. They don't control whether people move here or not. The county commissioners don't get to rubber stamp whether somebody wants to move to New Hanover County. We live in a country where you're allowed to freely move around. And if you've got the financial resources and the ability to do so, you're pretty much allowed to go wherever the hell you want, regardless of what anybody thinks or says about it. You're allowed to move. You're allowed to relocate your family. You're allowed to get a job somewhere else, like many of us, and including myself, have done in our treks to this area of the state. And so with this problem, with this issue, which there is one, no question about it, of affordable housing, you've had government get involved. And I would argue almost 100% of the time that when you've got government getting involved in an issue, that if we're being truly honest and truthful with ourselves, government has very little control over so-called affordable or workforce housing. That is exclusively a free market issue. Now, where government can have control and where government does have an impact on this is when it comes to things like zoning, things like taxes and red tape and government bureaucracy, right? That's where government can have an impact on the supply and demand of housing, which is exactly what we're talking about. Why is housing and why are rents so expensive in southeastern North Carolina? Because there's a supply and demand problem. Now, part of that is geographical. New Hanover County is the second smallest geographic county in the state of North Carolina. All right, we're not Brunswick County, we're not Pender County, we're not Wake or Mecklenburg, these much larger geographical areas where they've been able to expand outwards. I mean, you now look at the Raleigh metro area and you've got multiple counties that are in that. You've got people living in Johnston and Harnett County that are working and spending a majority of their time in Raleigh. And because it's one contiguous landmass, that population is able to expand and grow. We don't have that flexibility here in New Hanover County. You've got the Cape Fear River to the west, the Atlantic Ocean to the east, and then a little growth to the north until you hit Pender County. We are landlocked here in our area. We are geographically a relatively small area in the state, the second smallest by actual landmass. So that creates problems in itself because there is nowhere to expand and grow. You are literally stuck with the land that you've got, the land that is available right now. So that no doubt about it goes into the discussion of housing affordability. There's only so much land to build apartments, single family homes, duplexes, and condos. So because of that limited inventory of land, you get a limited inventory of supply that is available for consumers to either purchase or rent. So you've got government that has tried to dip their toe into this issue, and it hasn't worked. Government can affect housing when you talk about zoning, taxes, red tape, and bureaucracy. That's about it. Anything else government tries to do to affect change in an area that is exclusively controlled by the free market won't work. We know that it won't work. So back a couple of years ago, New Hanover County and the city of Wilmington joined forces to create what was known as the Workforce Housing Advisory Committee. I'm reading this directly from the New Hanover County government website, and this is the overview of the committee. The Workforce Housing Advisory Committee is a joint committee between New Hanover County and the city of Wilmington, made up of 6 appointed members from the Board of Commissioners and 6 members appointed by the city of Wilmington, and 1 representative of the Joint City-County Commission Relations Advisory Committee. The WHAC was created in 2019 to develop a workforce housing study and public opinion survey, conduct a public awareness campaign on the topic of workforce housing, make advisory recommendations on procedures, processes, or policies that will promote workforce housing, and provide an annual written report or presentation. So that's the long and the short, the rundown of what this advisory committee is. And as you look at what this group is really tasked with, they do a written report or a presentation to the county commissioners They conduct public awareness on the topic of workforce. I don't even know what that means. I mean, you host a community meeting and ask people if it's too expensive to live here. And then they're supposed to make recommendations and advise the county commissioners, who of course are the final decision makers on things coming out of New Hanover County. Over the last couple of years, this group has been tasked with doling out close to $3 million, actually exactly $3 million a year for the county government to subsidize housing, for taxpayers in New Hanover County to subsidize housing projects that are being built by the free market. Right? These are not county-owned, county-built, county-delivered housing projects. These are third-party projects that are going to the county, or this advisory committee is going to them and offering them, in some cases, a significant sum of money in their ongoing creation of a housing project, their ongoing creation of an apartment complex or a condo complex. And with the passage of the New Hanover County budget back last month, this advisory committee no longer has that $3 million pot of money. The three Republican commissioners in Dane Scalise, Leanne Pierce, and the chair, Bill Rivenbark, voted to approve a budget that significantly reduced the tax rate for the citizens of New Hanover County after property reevaluation. Right, we talked about that ad nauseum here on the show. And with that, an attempt to finding a way to cut on government services, find a way to bring the budget back into scope and to provide tax relief to the residents of New Hanover County, they determined that it wasn't prudent going forward to spend $3 million a year for the county government to subsidize housing projects. And that was a determination made by the majority of the county commissioners. Again, the three Republicans. It's a 3-2 Republican to Democrat board. They approved the budget. It went into effect July the 1st. And now that $3 million is gone. So at yesterday's New Hanover County Board of Commissioners meeting, County Manager Chris Crudre, who for all intents and purposes acts as is kind of like the CEO of the county. Now, he's not in a decision-making role. Votes and decisions have to be made by the county commissioners, but he is the one that is running and operating the county day in and day out. That is his responsibility as the county manager. And oftentimes, if you are somebody that follows local government meetings, he brings forth recommendations to the County Board of Commissioners, and he brought forth the recommendation yesterday to get rid of this Workforce Housing Advisory Committee, not disband it, but pull out of the joint partnership between New Hanover County and the city of Wilmington. So before we get any further into this, we'll turn it over to the county manager. This is at yesterday's county commission meeting.
Number one, I never bring to you without serious deliberation, advice, counsel, policy recommendations. And so this was equally reviewed, scrutinized, and I'm bringing to you a recommendation that I think is clearly in keeping with the board's adopted policy as it relates to withdrawing funding from the workforce housing program that was $3 million a year. To date, there have been $9 million put into the field of play. That work will continue, but I do believe this is in keeping with the overall policy orientation of the board to withdraw from the direct funding space and deal more with market considerations and policy interventions that in my mind are largely driven by your planning board that you appoint for those reasons, as well as our planning staff. I also think if you look at the body of work from the Workforce Housing Committee, while it has made recommendations around accessory dwelling units and things such as that, the majority of its work has been in the space of funding and largely what is the public sector's commitment as the source of leverage to deal with taking the cost of housing down and or creating new housing stock. The county staff has also been the permanent staff to the Workforce Housing Advisory Committee, and with the policy direction, we have contracted the planning office by 2 positions, one that was exclusively dedicated to the housing fund function. And so in light of for what I know to be the purposes that the committee was established, much of the work that it has done over the course of time, and the fact that the board has withdrawn its financial commitment, not its policy goals of addressing the cost of housing, but its financial commitment. I believe the county withdrawing from the Workforce Housing Advisory Committee is the most appropriate course of action.
So there you just had it laid out by the county manager, explaining that the vast majority of what this body was doing was being responsible for doling out $3 million a year to a variety of projects throughout New Hanover County. And with that money being gone, with the staff position being cut as it relates, because again, if there's no $3 million to give out, you don't need a full-time employee responsible for dealing with that. His recommendation is we pull out of this interlocal agreement between the city of Wilmington and New Hanover County. And as we continue with this discussion, again, I bring up the point, and I think it's an irrelevant one. What effect can a group like this, or even the county government as a whole, have on housing? And so this advisory committee was spawned back in 2019. And so as I was doing some research yesterday, I thought to myself, okay, what has happened to housing prices since this advisory committee began? And so I went over to Zillow and I looked at the 5-year housing market trend in New Hanover County. And in the middle parts of 2020, the average home index, and actually I need to change this to just single family homes. The average single family home was around $288,000. This is according to publicly available data from Zillow. $288,000. The Workforce Housing Advisory Committee had just begun the year prior. Since 2020, at $288,000, we look to where we were last month. The average single-family value index is now $451,000. You are looking at that value almost doubling over the last 5 years. So you've had this committee in place for 6 years now that was supposed to address workforce housing, affordable housing. And what has the result been? Almost a doubling of single-family home property values in New Hanover County. And I don't bring this up to dog the committee. I'm not saying they were doing bad work, but I'm bringing it up to show you that there's very little change that can be affected from a group like this. The county has very little control over what property values are. Really, the only thing they can deal with is zoning and red tape. Whether they agree to sign off on a housing community or not. Other than that, the free market decides what the property's worth. If somebody's willing to pay $451,000 for a house in New Hanover County, there is nothing that the government can do. This is what a free market system looks like. Individuals are determining the value. I believe housing prices are bloated and inflated right now in New Hanover County. I am a strong believer of that. But until people stop buying the houses at these prices, that's what the result is going to be. And you can already see that the plateau is essentially I believe, is already kind of there when you look at these housing prices. And they will probably begin to tick down at least a little bit over the next couple of years. But since the creation of this committee, which was tasked with finding solutions to make housing more affordable, we've seen nearly a doubling in the rate of what a single family home value is in New Hanover County. Again, not to say that this group is not doing good work. Not to say that that affordable housing is not a concern. It absolutely is. This graph proves it. The question is, what effect can county government have through an advisory committee in giving out $3 million a year? We've spent $9 million worth of taxpayer monies, and we've seen home value indexes go from $288,000 to more than $451,000 in the span of just 5 years. Have we gotten a good ROI, a good return on our investment of that $9 million? So that was the recommendation by the county manager. And now I think it's important to hear from our elected officials. We'll start off with the order in which they spoke. County Commissioner Dane Scalise discussing this yesterday afternoon.
Into the notion of workforce and affordable housing, which I think everyone up here agrees is important. There are, of course, policy differences about how to achieve a variety of options that are out there. I, for instance, tend to believe that the private sector is most and best positioned to advance the issue of affordability. The county, no doubt, has played a role. And I would just ask for the members of this board, as well as the community, to consider that whenever, over the course of the last 6 years since this organization was established, this joint advisory committee, that we have made significant investments into the, again, issues and areas of workforce and affordable housing. I also want to point out, though, that our community members have repeatedly, over the last couple of years, indicated to us that they are concerned about the rate and speed of density in New Hanover County. And I think that it would be remiss of us to ignore those considerations, to tell the individuals who have indicated to us that they're concerned about the density that is available left to be built in New Hanover County, for us to just continue on with a policy that, in addition to the work that's already being done by the private sector, will only add that much more apartment buildings and such into our community. And it's not to say that I'm unconcerned about the issue of affordability. Of course I am. It'd be ridiculous to say otherwise. But I'm also concerned about the quality of life for the people that are in this community. And we cannot simply build our way out of this issue. And so for the individuals who will say otherwise, I would ask them to explain to all of us how they attempt to reconcile those concepts, how they can simultaneously say that they're concerned about the rate and speed of growth, how they're simultaneously concerned with the quality of life for the people in this community, and then insist that the county play some role in subsidizing the building of apartments in this community. To me, that doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all. And so this policy shift that we have decided to endeavor toward is a recognition of what our community members have told us. They have told us, please be more circumspect about the building that you're doing in this community. And if we were to just continue on with subsidizing these same things over and over again, just in the name of affordable housing, just using that phrase, and that's the only thing that we have to point to, that's the only thing that matters, so long as we say affordable housing, then it's okay. Well, I don't agree with that. I think that we have made a determination that is looking out for the best interest of the people of this community. And yes, we will continue to dialogue with the city. We will continue to dialogue with any number of partners on how we can make sure that we do have the housing that is necessary for this community. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again now. New Hanover County cannot fit the entirety of the world inside of it. And so, with that in mind, I think that we have got to move forward with the county manager's recommendation with confidence, and again, recognize that as there are projects or ideas that are worthy of pursuit or exploration, we will explore them. But to have an unfunded mandate in the form of this joint committee, one where perhaps the alignment of the city and the county are not the same, to utilize our staff time and tell them come up with projects that we're ultimately not going to pay for or approve would be a mistake.
Those are the comments there from County Commissioner Dane Scalise on this workforce affordable housing committee yesterday. And, he brings up a really good point during his comments. And this is something that you see all over social media. There's too many damn apartment complexes being built. Too many damn multi-family units being built. Right? People say they don't want apartments, they want single-family housing. Yet, because the land is so expensive, because we're a sought-after area, single-family housing would be astronomical. You'd be looking at houses starting at probably $500,000 and going up from there. Again, because the land is so expensive. And so there's this weird thing that people, and there's this weird notion that I personally believe exists here in New Hanover County, where you've got a whole influx of people that have moved here, myself included, that have moved into the area and have now decided that because they're here, nobody else should be allowed to come. Because they've moved here, right? Some cases 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, they're of the opinion and of the mindset now that nobody else should be able to come. And they're now saying, oh, well, we need to stop. There needs to be no more building in our area. Now that I'm here, everything is done. If people had said that 20 or 30 years ago, none of us would be in Wilmington. None of us would be in southeastern North Carolina, or at least far fewer of us that are here than are here right now. And so there's this weird thing that goes on locally where everybody says they want housing to be more affordable. Apartments are the best way to add a mass group of housing to a relatively small geographic area because you can build up and wide, unlike single family housing. Yet people don't like apartments and don't like condos. They say, well, that's not good enough. We need more single family dwellings. The reality is very simple. There's a relatively small amount of land that is available to be built in New Hanover County. And because of that relatively small amount of land, it is very expensive. And so that's why you've got so many apartments and condos being built in areas where they can house 300 or 400 people versus 60 or 70 people or 30 or 50 people in a traditional single family neighborhood. Now, nothing wrong with single family neighborhoods, nothing wrong with apartments, but you've got to look at the factors that exist that are causing so many of these things to be built. There's a reason that developers are building apartments. The land is so damn expensive that is the way that they can justify putting affordable property out there, right? The same individuals that complain about affordable housing would be dismayed when a housing developer says, hey, we're going to build on this 15 acres of land, but the houses are going to start at $750,000. They would say, well, that's absurd. It's not affordable. Correct, because the land is so expensive. Again, geographically, second smallest county landmass-wise in the state of North Carolina. There is a relatively small amount of area to build, and that is one of the reasons why this is such a big topic and such a big issue. I've got comments, more comments from Commissioner Scalise, some commentary from other members of the County Commission, including Vice Chair Leanne Pierce as well. We'll get to those coming up here in just a few minutes, plus your comments as well on our live streams this morning, YouTube, Rumble, and X. When legal challenges arise, make sure you put your trust in the law group here in Wilmington. Since 2003, their experienced attorneys have provided high-quality, affordable legal services across eastern North Carolina. Whether you're facing a divorce, navigating real estate transactions, or maybe you're in a position where you need a strong defense, the law group has your back. Their dedicated team ensures your questions are answered and issues are resolved promptly. Great news, folks. They're located in downtown Wilmington and just a phone call away at 910-251-6088, or you can visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. That's 910-251-6088, or their great website, lawgroupnc.com. The Law Group, experience and dedication you can rely on. We appreciate the Law Group and their continued support of the Nick Craig Show. We'll continue the affordable housing discussion coming up after this as the Nick Craig Show rolls on, streaming live Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. on YouTube, Rumble, and X, and 24/7, wherever you get your podcasts. And a good Tuesday morning to you. Welcome back to the Nick Craig Show, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, and X. We are talking about the Workforce Housing Advisory Committee and the greater topic, a larger topic of discussion, affordable housing across southeastern North Carolina. Set up on all of this as this committee was tasked at a certain point with dealing with about $3 million a year worth of funding. That money, as the county continued to try and scale back their budget and provide some tax relief to citizens in New Hanover County, that funding was scrapped and is no longer going to be funded. So the county manager brought forth the recommendation that the advisory committee be disbanded because they just didn't really have any additional work to do. And we've heard that up to this point, this group has spent $9 million in subsidizing housing projects. Meanwhile, when you look at the average price of a single-family dwelling in New Hanover County, that price has nearly doubled from where that number was just 5 years ago. So the question is this working? Is this a good investment? Commissioner Scalise opined on that.
Another point that I want to make in connection with that is those $29 million that we've played a direct or indirect role in deploying over the last several years. Many of those projects haven't even been advanced in some meaningful way. There are no people living in the units that have been contemplated before. So don't we owe it to the public? Don't we owe it to the people that we represent to at least pause for a moment and determine how successful or not successful the investments that we've previously made are going to be before we just continue on unabated with further investment into this area? I think that we absolutely deserve, or the public deserves, for us to do that. I know that these topics can sometimes be charged. People like to say things like, you don't care about affordable housing because you didn't provide this funding. That is not true. It's obviously the case that we want housing affordability to be available for the people who live in this community. But there are limitations. We cannot, again, accommodate the entire world of New Hanover County, and I, for one, will not attempt to try. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And that's something that you don't often hear from government. We've spent directly $9 million, indirectly about $29 million on affordable housing projects, essentially taxpayer subsidized projects over the last 5 or 6 years. Many of the projects, as Commissioner Scalise notes, are not built yet. There's nobody living in any of these units. They are in very early construction and development stages. You've only got, I think, out of the $9 million, I think you've only got 2 projects that are actually online to this point. And the question is I think, a fair one that needs to be asked more when you look at government. Is this working? Are we getting a good return on our investment for the money that's being spent? Now, $9 million is no small sum of money just being spent over the last 3 years. And this is something that government very often fails to do. And it's one of the reasons why you see budgets ballooning each and every year. Because there's very little, very infrequently is there a willingness to inward reflect and say, hey, we're spending money on this thing. It's got this mission stated goal. It's got this objective. Is it actually hitting the mark? Is the money that we're actually spending helping solve the problem that we're trying to fix? And again, I'll go back to this point. There's not a whole hell of a lot that New Hanover County or the city of Wilmington or anybody else can do about the free market real estate situation that we have. I mean, there's very little. And the biggest thing when I think about affordable housing, and you're about to hear from 2 Democrats on the board, Rob Zappel and Stephanie Walker. These are the same individuals, Walker and Zappel, that wanted to jack up your property taxes here in New Hanover County. And so you're going to hear this teary-eyed story about how we need to make sure that we still have this committee. We need to make housing more affordable. Yet those 2 commissioners were willing to raise your property taxes to continue to fund out-of-control government. An almost $40 million increase on the county's budget from last year. And I don't know why this is not said more. It needs to be stated every time. If you want to make housing more affordable, let's start with taxes. Something that everybody in New Hanover County pays every year. Whether you're a property owner or you're a renter, you're paying property taxes. If you're renting a single family home from somebody, they're paying the property taxes and passing along the cost to you. If you're renting an apartment, the cost of the property that apartment is sitting on is baked into your monthly rent. And of course, if you own your property, you're getting a tax bill every year from New Hanover County. If we're serious about affordable housing, which I think we should be, and I believe that the county commissioners are, then why don't we look at government spending? Why don't we look at people's property taxes going from $1,000 to $2,500 a year? You want to talk about making housing less affordable? Take an extra $1,000, $1,500 out of people's yearly budget to send it directly to the county. Is that making your housing more or less affordable? The answer is very clear and very simple. When taxes go up, it is thereby, by definition, less affordable. You have less money to put into your pocket. You have less money at the end of the month if your escrow payments go up to make up for so-called affordable housing. I mean, that's the sham in all of this. And it's just so ironic. And I'll get to the clips here in a second. When you listen to Democrats on the county commission that were actively advocating just like 4 weeks ago to balloon the county budget by $40 million, you now have to listen to them preach and lecture the public on affordable housing. We'll start with Commissioner Rob Zappel, who wanted the county's budget to balloon and wanted to charge every single resident in New Hanover County significantly more every year because of the tax and spend policies of Democrats on the New Hanover County Board of Commissioners. Here's Rob Zappel.
I think it is premature to do away with this committee, and especially sending the wrong message to our entire community that we don't care what happens, we'll leave it to the city. Well, the city citizens are county citizens, and that's an important part of our work. We can't just leave it up to them. Every survey we take, affordable and workforce housing is right at the top of the list, and for us to run in the opposite direction and say, well, we'll listen to you when you have something good to say. That's not the way good government works. Good government is a partnership with the people out there, and the people have, thank you, the people have described what they see as a serious problem. And we have taken the steps by bringing in other people of the community through this Workforce Housing Committee to help advise us, to let them know that we hear their voices, to give them the platform so that they can help us study and help us try and find solutions. By abandoning this and them in this work, we send the exact opposite message to our community. I think this is way premature to go ahead to try and cut this off, especially when we know that we have the endowment who is at least considering what they should have done. One of their own initiatives that was set in their founding documents, affordable and workforce housing. Now, I know they've got their own set of issues going on over there, but I go back to $9 million spent, $150 million of private investment. There is no greater return on investment by any committee of this county than we've ever had here. This is a huge success. Why should we walk away from that?
I don't know how you can say it's a huge success. I mean, again, the average single family home, according to Zillow, is $451,000. It was $288,000 just 5 years ago. Well, again, when you're going to say that we've had such great success, what are the metrics that are being used to determine that success? This is often the biggest problem with government. There's no way to put metrics on any of this stuff. Right? You'll remember back over the last couple of years, there was this great idea by New Hanover County that they were going to spend tens of millions of dollars a year funding a group to stop violence in New Hanover County. Right? You'll remember Port City United, pretty hot topic here last year and over the last couple of years. Same issue there. All of this money being spent, and what was the end result? You had county employees driving people to the scene of a crime to shoot and kill somebody. You had county employees and the leader of the group not being able to show up for work on time, having to be fired. And again, where were the metrics? Was crime significantly reduced in New Hanover County, or were a bunch of people just collecting a paycheck on the taxpayer dime? But you're going to make these claims and make these statements We should be able to look and say, hey, yeah, here's all the great work that's been done, but we don't have that. It just doesn't exist. There's no way to deal with this problem at the level of government with some advisory committee. The county could spend $1 gazillion. I mean, you just build housing then. Let's just do rent-controlled, government-owned and operated housing. If you want to deal with so-called affordable housing, that's your solution. Look at where it's led places like New York City. That's the solution. That's the alternative. That doesn't work. It's a free market problem. And again, we have constraints in our area that are not going to be solved by anybody. They're not going to be solved by the government. They're not going to be solved by the county, the city, the state, the federal government. We are geographically limited in southeastern North Carolina, particularly in New Hanover County, how we build. There's nowhere to build out, so you have to build up. You build up, people bitch and complain that there's too many apartments and too many condos. So what do you want? You can't build single-family homes on land that is valued the way that it is currently. It's just not practical. I mean, you can build the homes, but they're going to sell for $1 million+ a piece. And so that completely negates this entire point. Let's turn it over to the vice chair of the New Hanover County Commissioners. Here's Leanne Pierce and her thoughts on this workforce housing advisory committee.
I want to address something I've heard here tonight about how we cut the budget so much. We really did not achieve revenue neutral. We did not cut and slash the budget. We actually increased it by $11 million. It was a proposal from staff that we had 35 cents and $39 million more would be added to the budget. We just did not allow that because our citizens overwhelmingly told us that they did not want to see their tax rates go up. They overwhelmingly said they were struggling at home and they wanted us to hear them. So I don't want the folks out there to think that we're not interested in affordable housing. We certainly are, but I'm not sure we can build our way out of it anymore. We need to incentivize the public sector and our folks that are building in New Hanover County to incorporate a piece of affordable housing into their projects. I don't think it's the role of the government to do that. We're struggling with that. And I think that it's time to see where our $9 million, what are the metrics of what we've already put out there? And the endowment has stepped up to the plate with a commitment of $19 million. So I want to see that money get on the ground, and let's see what the metrics are of those, and are we hitting the right sectors in our community that we're trying to hit? So at this time, I'm inclined to go with the manager's recommendation.
A great point there from Commissioner Pierce. This is not the role of government. Music to my ears. Is it the role of government to provide affordable housing to a community? As a free market capitalist and a free market conservative, no. The way that government can make housing more affordable is, as I mentioned, one of the big ones, of course, are taxes. You can streamline zoning laws. You can do things like, cut red tape, expedite permitting, reduce fees associated with getting projects approved, make things get built faster and cheaper. Those are the actual changes that government can affect. This idea that the county's going to spend $3 million a year and that somehow is going to drop the price of rent for everybody in New Hanover County is insane. It's not only is it not happening, it's a complete fairy tale to assume that it will. You've got the county subsidized in some cases. Oh, we've got 12 units that are being built in this new apartment complex of 400 that are going to be deemed affordable and workforce housing. So you've built, the county has spent $3 million to build 12 apartments. What is that going to do? What major impact is going to be going on because you've got a 400 unit apartment that's being built and 12 of the units are 60% AMI? That solves the affordable housing crisis in New Hanover County. 12 units? That's actually what's happening. That's actually what your taxpayer dollars are going towards. And it just doesn't seem like a good use of money. And frankly, it doesn't seem like a position where government should be involved. Cut red tape, streamline zoning, and reduce the property tax rate. That will make housing affordable for everybody, regardless of whether you're buying a home, renting a home from somebody that owns it, renting an apartment, or buying a condo. It doesn't matter where you fall in those categories. Your property will be less expensive because of that. No question about it. Now we'll turn over to Stephanie Walker, who I found her new catchphrase is she starts everything off with, "I don't understand." That's how she begins every statement. She's, I guess, just completely lost as to what's going on. So let's hear from the great Stephanie Walker.
I just don't understand. There's a reason we formed this committee to begin with. It was not specifically tied to the 5-year plan. Just because the budget decision was made doesn't mean the problem does not still exist, and does not mean that we should not have community members giving us feedback. Community members, like I mentioned, that are immersed in this issue every day. And so I just don't understand why one financial budget decision means this whole contract is gone. It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, obviously it's going to happen anyway, and that, you know, I'll actually have to deal with that vote. But I just think it further withdraws us from this whole conversation, and the fact that, you know, the members put all this hard work into it, and I just think it's disrespectful to our community. Thank you.
So that's a fine opinion to have. You think it's disrespectful. You think it shouldn't be done. All fine. But again, I'll ask, what's the metric that we're using? How much money do we need to spend to make housing allegedly or so-called workforce or affordable? And I think as a community, we deserve to see what that number is. Right? If I'm making a determination on how I'm spending money, then I would like to see where that money's being spent and what change it's going to affect. This is, again, the problem with government. You just dump money in search of a solution with no metrics and on something that you have no control over. The same way that Port City United was a huge freaking waste of taxpayer dollars, this is as well. Port City United spending $15 million a year giving a bunch of people government jobs does not solve community violence. It does not stop people, criminals, from going out and acting poorly. It's a ridiculous concept, and it is completely out of the scope and control of government. Zoning, red tape, and taxes. That's how the county and the city can affect housing affordability and housing construction across our area. And County Commissioner Leanne Pierce points out the biggest problem with this is the county is just subsidizing housing projects. Take a listen.
I think you'll hear a lot of folks in our community say that they don't want their tax dollars funding gaps for the developers. That's what a lot of our focus has been going to, is giving developers more money so they make more profit. And I hear my constituents saying they don't want that anymore. So, and I, hold on.
Yeah.
Hang on. See you. But so anyway, and what we did partially in our budget was fund more money for our police officers. We did increase salaries. I mean, that was a priority to us. Mm-hmm. Instead of doing that, let's just pay our teachers and our police officers and our firemen more money so they can afford to live in the county that they represent. Mm-hmm. And then we know we're hitting the target audience that we're trying to get in our workforce housing endeavors. And just because we say workforce housing, are we really getting to the sector that we're trying to reach?
And before Rob Zappel takes over here, the point that Leanne Pierce is commenting on, I don't have the clip of it, is Rob Zappel was talking about how police and fire response and sheriff's deputies and teachers and nurses, they can't afford to live in New Hanover County. So therefore we need to spend this $3 million a year to somehow make their housing more affordable. And Leanne Pierce says, you know, if those are the sectors that we're concerned with, many of them are county employees, we'll just pay them more. That solves the problem. But see, this is the issue with the left on this housing affordability thing. They throw out all of these groups of individuals, again, teachers, firefighters, city police, sheriff's deputies, so on and so forth, these individuals, but they have no way to measure whether they're actually affecting any change for those groups. They have no way to measure whether they're actually having an impact on those people. I mean, if those are the groups that you're concerned with, then I'm in full agreement with what Commissioner Leanne Pierce said. Just pay them more. Cut the crap out of the county budget and just fund those departments more so they can pay their employees more. If those are truly the groups that you're trying to, in this case, it's gaslighting and virtue signaling towards.
It's become such a buzzword in the community that it's not always hitting that sector.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair Pierce. When you say paying for the gaps, when you have a project that comes forward, as we do, let's just say it's a $50 million project, and they can go to the federal government for LIHTC, low-income housing tax credits, for a portion of it.
And that's government-funded housing. That's a little different. That's HUD.
Yeah, I know, but in this project, this theoretical project, they bring that money into our community to help try and solve this problem. They put it together with their own private investment money also that's there, and sometimes they come short by $50,000 or $100,000.
Now I got to stop this right here. This example is absurd. So a $50 million housing project is $50,000 short. And the only way that that project goes forward is if the county gives them $50,000. A $50 million, his example, a $50 million housing project is scrapped because they're just $50K short. Nonsense. Complete and total nonsense. And the point that Commissioner Pierce makes is that community members, rightfully so, are frustrated with essentially these small amounts of money just going to these massive projects, 50, 75, $100 million projects, makes absolutely no sense.
That's where that
Or a
gap
couple
is.
of million, which is what we put out in some cases.
Oh, in some cases, it could be. I was just, in my theoretical choice, project that I was putting out there. But that's money that would not come into our community absent all the work that's being done by the private sector. That's the prime of the pump. So we end up getting again, in my theoretical project, a $50 million project that comes to New Hanover County that, absent our tiny little gap filling there, wouldn't come at all. That's a pretty good return on investment. And that's happening all over New Hanover County.
It's a good return on investment if you could actually track it and see if it's having an impact. And from all of the publicly available data that I have access to, that would not appear to be the case at all. And Commissioner Pierce follows this up with another great point. Okay, firefighters, teachers, first responders, so on and so forth. Are those folks actually living in these units that the county is doling out $3 million a year of your money to fund? Great question, Commissioner Pierce.
On the developments that we have invested in, which I don't know if they're built or not, because I don't think they are, how many teachers live there? How many police officers live there? How many firemen live there? Because we continue to use those three professions and no other professions, but I would be curious to know what those metrics are for that affordable housing.
And Madam Vice Chair, I can't answer your question. I couldn't then, and am really in no better shape today. Many of the projects are still in the course of construction. I do know of two, or at least one, that opened in the Castle Hayne area that was actually an older adult facility, so it certainly does not qualify in that context. What I can say, and the county has sunsetted that program as well, is that the county, to my knowledge, is the only one that was providing direct assistance to teachers through a housing stipend that was worked with the Board of Education. To my knowledge, that is the only program in this community that did that, and that was independent and not at all inclusive of the $3 million housing program that the planning staff was administering on an annual basis.
So there's the breakdown and the discussion from the meeting yesterday. Again, folks, this is a complicated discussion. There is no one-size-fits-all, silver bullet, magic 8-ball solution to solving affordable and workforce housing. Once again, we live in a very sought-after place to be in the United States. We have an incredible physical climate here in southeastern North Carolina. Our state, thanks to great conservative and Republican control in the General Assembly, has made this place an incredibly friendly place for businesses and families to move and live. Those are all good things. Are there issues with growth? Absolutely. Does the infrastructure lag behind? Absolutely. There are real concerns and real issues. The question is, does it make sense for New Hanover County to spend $3 million a year subsidizing, 22 apartment units in a larger process at a 80 or 60% AMI rate? The answer is no. It's just not. The free market will find a solution. It always has, it always does, it always will. If government wants to help with affordable housing, continue to reduce the property tax rate, continue to reduce regulation and red tape on property development. That would allow units to be built quicker, faster, and cheaper, right? Because when a developer has to sit on a piece of land for 6 or 8 months waiting for permits to be done, that's 6 or 8 months where they're not generating any profit or revenue, which is therefore then passed on to the individuals that are living in, whether it's a single family home or an apartment complex or a condo. That money is passed on. So if you can reduce that from 8 months to 3 months and construction can begin, not only do you get units on the market significantly faster, but it's less overhead upfront expense that the developer is just sitting there twiddling their thumbs waiting for approval from New Hanover County. There is no solution to this problem. The reality is very simple. It is a geographically small area that a lot of people want to be. And I'll go back to one of the points that Commissioner Dane Scalise made. Not every single person in the world is going to be able to move to New Hanover County. That's just the fact. There's only so much room that's available. Now, people also don't want you to build up. They want you to continue to build single family housing, yet they complain that everything is too expensive. I mean, you can't have it both ways. The way to get the most units online, the most housing units on the marketplace is by building up. It's by building apartments and condos. That's the way to do it. You can't, I mean, building 15 homes in a small little community, a small little neighborhood has absolutely no effect on housing availability at all. You're looking at an incredibly small subset of individuals that are purchasing those pieces of property versus a much larger apartment or condo complex, which people also don't want. We are on the side of growth. Growth comes with growing pains and challenges. It is not the role of government, especially a county government, to be subsidizing private industry development to make housing so-called more affordable. There's no metrics. There's no data. You hear from the Democrat commissioners that this is great ROI. Where's the evidence of that? I'll pull up this Zillow chart one more time. Here's your 5-year chart of Zillow home value indexes for single-family homes across southeastern North Carolina. $288,000 5 years ago in 2020. You look at that same housing price now, $451,000. So there you go. Where's the metric? Where's the so-called great ROI? Government is not a solution to every problem. Money is not a solution to every problem. And I'm a strong proponent and I'm a strong believer that an issue like this in housing affordability is not something that government can control. It is determined by what people are willing to spend and what people are willing to sell for. And there's very little change and very little effect that government can have on that issue. Should they be concerned with affordable housing? Yes. Did you hear that the county commissioners are concerned with affordable housing? Yes. So let's look at things that can help and provide some relief for every citizen. Let's start with taxes, especially for the 2 Democrat commissioners that wanted to increase the county's budget by $40 million just a couple of weeks ago, raising people's property taxes by, in some cases, thousands of dollars a year, making your housing, therefore, by definition, more unaffordable. Let's start there. And here's the thing. If we determine 16, 18, 24 months down the road that maybe this $3 million was being spent well and it was a good program, then you can reinstate it. But what's the issue right now? You've got $9 million out there, very few things to actually show for it. And with that, what is the end result? You've got the county spending millions of dollars worth of taxpayer funds every year, and what are we seeing as the return on that? It's a complicated issue. There is no quote unquote solution to the problem. We are in a sought after place. And the fact of the matter is you can't stop people from moving here. I know that's what a lot of people want. I see a lot of commentary on Facebook. Oh, we're full here in southeastern North Carolina. Then you look at the person's profile. They've been here for 16 months. Oh, we're full now. I moved here a year and a half ago, but no, we're full. No more. Nobody else can move here. It's absurd. It's complete insanity. So this joint commission, this Workforce Housing Advisory Committee, still exists in the city. However, the city was not putting any money into it. It was the county funding it. So we'll see maybe at the next city council meeting if they decide to pull out of this and the group goes away. But that was the latest from the New Hanover County Board of Commissioners meeting yesterday. A very interesting discussion. Love to hear your feedback on what can government do. What effects can government have on affordable housing? You can drop those comments on our YouTube channel over on X or on our Rumble chat as well. And we look forward to that feedback, as this is going to be a big issue as that we get closer to the city council elections. Will be a major discussion point for candidates running there. It will be a major discussion for county commission candidates next year. This is not a conversation that is going away. And so it's kind of interesting to watch it morph and play out over time. Well, that's going to do it for a Tuesday edition of the Nick Craig Show. Thanks to the Law Group here in Wilmington for their continued support. Visit them online at lawgroupnc.com or give them a call at 910-251-6088. That's going to do it. Thanks for joining us live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, and X, or 24/7 wherever you get your podcasts. We're back here tomorrow bright and early for the Nick Craig Show.